So today is lesson 6. It's the week after Thanksgiving. We've had a long weekend. Portfolio submissions were due yesterday at 5 p.m. So far, I've received 23 of 36 submissions, which I'll be honest is a little bit disappointing. That's quite low for an assignment worth 15% of the mark. I know that there are some students who did reach out to me and for some very good reasons and extenuating circumstances have asked for a little extra time. That's fine, but that's not the majority of the students. I do not like giving out zeros. So if you haven't submitted the assignment yet, you should be submitting today for the most possible marks. Even getting part marks is better than getting a zero. I don't want to give a zero out, but if people don't submit the work within a few days of the deadline, then I really don't have any choice. So I will encourage you, if you're one of the students who have not submitted yet and we haven't already reached an accommodation, then make sure you submit something so that you get at least some marks for the assignment. So what are we doing today? We started out our first 10 minutes of class, we're doing a little portfolio sharing. So you can complete this after class. It's not for marks, but I'm asking people to post a link in this discussion board thread. So thanks to those of you who have already posted the link to your portfolio. And then it would be nice for you to go in, check out your classmates' work and give them a reply. Let them know what you like about their portfolio, or if you've got any suggestions on how they might improve it moving forward into the future. So that would be great. I think that way you're not just getting feedback from me, but you're also getting feedback from some other people in the class and getting a chance to get a sense of what your classmates are doing. So please have a look at this item after class. We are going to talk, even though only about a third of the class is here today, I guess it's being recorded, I'm going to talk about our exam next week, which will be held in class, our midterm exam. And then we're going to resume with our Node music library. Yeah, there are some really awesome projects. So you guys should get to kind of celebrate each other's work and how you're learning. Thanks for that, Boogra. So we're going to pick up with our Node tunes. Last week, we connected it to MongoDB so that we could read data from our database, but we haven't done the create, update, and delete operations. So we want to take time to implement all of that functionality today. We'll also, if we have time, we'll look at populating a dropdown from a database. We may or may not have the time to do that today, so we're going to see. So your midterm exam is next week. It will be held during class time, so on October 20th, next Wednesday. The exam has to be done from starting, it opens at 11 a.m. It must be submitted by 2 p.m. You should be signed into the WebEx room. So this is not an asynchronous exam. You should need to be signed into the WebEx room at 11 a.m. So if you have work or you have something else, you'll need to reschedule it for this week. It is not a do the exam anytime during the week. This is scheduled as a synchronous class. And while I do record it and try to make it available for people to learn asynchronously, that's not an option in weeks 7 and 14 for our midterm and final exam. So you want to be in the WebEx room. It also means you will hear the instructions in real time, and you'll be able to ask questions during the exam if there's anything you don't understand. Okay? I won't be able to help you debug in the exam, so you can't say, I have this error, how do I fix it? But you can certainly say, I don't understand what this requirement means. What is your expectation here? Okay, the exam will be all practical. There are no questions and answers. So you are going to be coding during the exam. And I have not yet decided if you're going to be building an application from scratch or if I'm going to be providing you with the starter application that you'll download and then you'll make changes. Both are possible. There may also be several different versions of the exam so that not every student will be working on the exact same project. That's another possibility. You will have to use GitHub, and I'll be asking you, if you've had an exam with me, an online exam with me before, you know that in my exams, I ask students to make a new commit every 30 minutes so I can see your progression, the progression of your work through the exam. So I will remind you at 11:30, 12, 12:30, 1:30. Okay, please make a new commit to GitHub now. Yes, similar structure, Chris, because you were in our C# class together in the summer. Yeah, very similar structure to that. Yes. Are there any questions about the midterm from anyone? Yes, you can use Bootstrap and jQuery, Fatima. That's fine. You'll be allowed to use those things.
Will the exam be based on everything we've learned up to this week or everything we've learned from the first 4 weeks?
No, it can include content from this week as well. Yes. So anything we've covered up to and including today's lesson can be
Right.
included on the exam.
I'm just trying to organize my study materials and balance my work. That's all I wanted to know.
Anybody, are there any other questions? I will open up the WebEx room a little bit earlier. I'll try to open it by 10:50 next week, and I'll be in the room. That's typically when I go to brew my coffee. I will be in the room early, and I will make the material available and go over the specific requirements right at 11 o'clock. So if you arrive at 11:05 or 11:10, you may well miss the instructions. I will encourage you to be here before 11. If some other question about the exam comes to mind before we finish for today, then please, by all means, let me know. I'm not seeing any other questions right now in the chat. Okay, so basically what I'd like to do is resume building our NodeTunes library. So we can open up WebStorm or VS Code or whatever editor you are using. It's going to open our project, and I'm just going to use our NodeMon package, as we've been doing, to kick it off. And we added some code last week that when we run the site in our app.js, we were using the Mongoose npm package to connect to our database. We called mongoose.connect. We passed in our connection string. And if it was successful, we would print connected to MongoDB in the console, which you can see here. So now I should be able to go and load up our NodeTunes site on localhost 3000. So last week, we manually added some artist documents into our MongoDB. And then we created an artists controller that used our artist model. And we had a GET request at the root. We used our usual express request and response callback. And then we used the find method. This is baked into Mongoose of our artist to go and find the artists. And when we rendered the view, we also passed in the artist data. This is all the stuff, just a quick kind of review of what we did last week. And then we created the index HBS, and we used this handlebar syntax with a simple loop to print out the artist's name. So this is kind of where we left things off last week. All the code is up on GitHub. You would just need to put in your own database connection into the config globals file so that you're using your own database. So this is kind of how we left off last week, our site up and running. So for our next trick, we want to add the ability to add a new artist. So we're going to create a new view. and we're going to need to create two methods in the artist controller. We'll need a get method that will display the input form, and then we'll need a post method that will process a form submission so we could actually save that artist to MongoDB. And then lastly, once that's all done, we'll want to bring the user back to the artist page, and hopefully we'll see that new artist appearing at the bottom of our list. We'll also then maybe do a little reformatting on this page as well. So that's our first plan. Once we can add an artist, we'll then implement the ability to delete or edit. So we're going to go to our controller, and we're going to write a new get method first. So the URL here will be artists/create. So I'll use kind of the same method name and nomenclature that we're familiar with from when we're using .NET MVC. So if we want to add a new artist, the URL will be /artists/create. So this is going to show new artist form. So the code in this method is going to be pretty simple. When we have a get request, a router.get request, and our path will be /create. Then we'll add our callback, our request and response. So we want to load, well, that's the same comment. So we use res.render artists/create. So the name of our method is going to map to, it's going to be the same, sorry, the method name or the path name is going to be the same as the view name. So if the URL is /artists/create, it'll display a view file in artists create.hps. So there's our simple method. I want to go to the browser now and try out this method. So if in my browser, I now navigate to artist/create, we get this. So what's happening here? Why do we get this? There's nothing actually wrong with our code. Exactly. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Adam. It's now calling, looking for an HBS file in the artist folder called create.hbs. We don't have that yet. So in order to make this error go away, we need to make, under views and artists, we've already got one view template, index.hbs. So we're going to make a new one. We're going to make a new file here under views and artists, which will have the name of create.hbs. So let's create that file. And we'll put on a heading here, add a new artist. Now, if we refresh, there is no, view cannot be found. That goes away, and we've got a page. We should also set a page title here. Notice on our artist page, right, we have our browser tab for search engines. It says artists, but here we don't have a title. We just have the URL. So how would we fix that? How do we ensure our page gets a SEO title? Thank you, Adam and Chris. So in our controller method, when we're rendering the view, let's also pass in a little JSON object that includes a title add a new artist. So I'm going to add in that optional JSON object. So our browser tab will have a search engine friendly title. I've highlighted the new code in blue. Oops, sorry. So now I get the friendly title in my browser tab. So now we're going to build a really simple form, right? I'll have to add some jQuery as well. Our mobile menu isn't working. Our little drop down. So we want to, the only thing we're storing for an artist is a name, right? In our artist model that we made last week, here's our schema. There's really only one property, which is the name. So the artist form is going to be very simple to build. If we go to create, we'll add a form. Field set. We'll have a label for the name. And then we'll have a simple input. Just using a few Bootstrap classes. The name will be name. The ID will also be name. And we'll use HTML5 to make sure this input is required. We'll see how this looks. So it's just straight HTML with some Bootstrap classes. We've got a form with a field set for that contains our label and input. The most important thing here is that our input has the attribute of name, so that this property can be mapped to the name property in our artist schema. We may have to change this a little bit. But we'll see how it looks. So if I go to artist/create, okay, probably good enough. So I have my required attribute. So that's good enough for now. You'll notice also we didn't actually have to specify we didn't specify anything in the form. We didn't specify a method. I don't actually think we need to with Node. Sorry, yes we do. We need the method, I should say, as post, but we don't need any action because the form basically posts to the same URL, just like in ASP.NET. The GET request renders the form, and the POST request to the same URL will submit the form. So there's our form. I don't think we should have to make too many other changes to it. Probably okay as it is. So now we'll need to go back to our artists controller and write a POST method. So what happens when the form is actually completed? So when we submit something, It should go somewhere. Not anymore, Adam. It used to need type equals submit, but it's now the default. So we no longer need it. Yeah, before we used to use input type equals submit, whereas input type equals button had no code, like you had to code it manually, but we don't need to anymore with the button tag. If it was input type equals button, then yes, we would need to code the submission. So we'll go back to our controller, and now let's write the post handler. So this is going to be the post method at /artist/create. Process, form, submission, and save new artist document. So when our router gets a post request at /create, we now have to deal with our request response model. So we're going to use the Mongoose model to create a new artist document. So we've already got up here, right? We've already got this artist. I should probably actually make all of these constants because we're not going to change them. Doesn't matter it's okay if we've used let. Probably more correct for me to use const here. So we can use our artist model. So we can call artist dot, and Mongoose has a create method that we can invoke. And we'll just say name. So the name property of our new artist is equal to our request.body.name. So that's going to read the input from our form called name. So that's reading this input here because we've given the name attribute of name. And one of two things can happen. We can get one of two results from calling create. What two things might happen when we try to create a new artist? Exactly. Thanks, Chris. So we could get back an error, or we could get back I'll just call it new artist. So here's our callback inside. If we get an error, we'll print it out. And we'll end the response. We'll also print the error to the browser. What should we do otherwise? So if we've successfully created, we get a new document back. What should happen? What should the user see? There's a couple of possibilities. If this saves successfully, what do you want to show them in the browser? We could either show them a message. Yep, we could do a success, or we could just do a redirect to this page and we would see the new artist at the bottom here. So we would know that the save was successful. So we could do either. I think we'll just do a redirect. So we'll call response.redirect. And we'll go back to the main articles page. So save successful. Update. Whoops, I'm sorry. This is artists. Update artists list view. So we're going to take them back to the list of artists if this saves successfully. So we can try this. I'm going to go to artists/create. We'll put in an artist and save. And I get redirected back here. And my new artist is now here. I will actually push this up to Git right now, so you can access any of the code if you need to. Okay, so I've uploaded the code, but I will also leave it up on my screen for a minute. So we're going to use our model to try and create a document. We're going to evaluate, did we get an error or did a new document get created? If we got the error, we're going to print it and end our response. If we created a new document successfully, we are just going to redirect the user back to the list of artists. So we have two different HTTP requests at the same URL at /create. Our get method loads our form, and our post method processes that form submission. Anybody have any questions so far? Now we should make a few changes to our index view. First of all, we should add a link here to add a new artist. Right now, there's no way to get here except by actually typing the URL. So that's not very helpful. I also want to do a little bit of formatting, just this bulleted list. We'll maybe use a Bootstrap card view to display these kind of like in these squares, maybe 3 at a time. So I'm going to go back to my index.hbs. And here we'll add a link /artist/create that says add a new artist. So I'm going to put that underneath my H1 tag, but above our list. So now I get the link to add a new artist. If you want, you could make it a button. If you wanted to style it as a button, you could do that. And now I want to reformat this code in our loop. So I'm going to just jump over here to Bootstrap. Somewhere, here's the card component. So I want something like this. Okay, so maybe I'll wrap this stuff here. Instead of ULs, just maybe put this on as a change these to sections. We have to play around with this a little bit. So have a class equals card. And then a class of card body. Let's see. And maybe we'll wrap it in a H5 tag. We'll see how this looks. Probably have to add a little more formatting. I'm just going to try this first. Okay, except they're taking up the full width, which I don't want. Okay, I think I have the HTML I actually need for this in another file. I think I've got HTML, so bear with me for a second. We can format this a little better. Okay. So this will be row, card, group. I'll take that out of here. I'll try these classes and see what that does. I may need to add one more thing. Better. I think I need one more wrapper around this to get the effect we want. So I've got to add some sizing. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so I get 3 per row. So there's the whole tag. I'll put it in the chat. I will put it up on GitHub shortly as well. So we're using Bootstrap to kind of size them, space them out a little bit. So as I continue to add artists, right? My cards will just keep appearing. As we add to the list. So you can add any artist you like. You don't have to use the ones I've used. We may also just want to fix our collapsible menu while we're at it. So this should drop down, right? When I'm on the Bootstrap site, menu drops down. The reason is this is using some JavaScript and jQuery. I think we're missing the script we need in order for this to work. So I'm just going to go back to think we're missing these to Bootstrap. I think I'm missing this JavaScript file. We'll go have a look. So in our layout, yeah, we've got the Bootstrap CSS link. So that gives us the style sheet, but we are missing the Bootstrap JavaScript link. So I can grab it from here. So from here, we've got a script source. I'll also put this in the chat. I need to add this to our layout file so that our little Bootstrap mobile-friendly menu actually opens and closes. So now not only do I have the style sheet, but I also have the Bootstrap JavaScript library. Okay, I'll need to figure out why that isn't working yet. Let's see. Okay, I will have to figure that out. There's obviously a reason. I would have expected that would have fixed it. We're not using their compiled. Okay, I'll have to look at that. Which element?
Should now be a time to take a break. That way you can troubleshoot and we could all have a breather.
We will take a break shortly, very shortly, yes. I'm just going to try to. So Adam, which elements? It's not critical to our functioning. Yeah, I'll look at it this. I will look at it this a bit later. That's span element listed for the item. Yeah. Okay, I'll take a look at that a bit later and fix it up. Not essential to what we need to do. So what we'll do, I'm going to push to GitHub again, what we've done so far. And then when we come back, we want to implement both delete and edit functionality here. So we will do that in our next part. Let's take a break here.